So we're going to try to cleanse the lens for the future, the crystal ball, the future of the Jets' head coaching job. Odds are already out there as to who the next coach will be. A lot of the usual suspects, the guys who have bubbled to the top of the presumptive going to get a head coaching job in the next cycle list, with Ben Johnson as the favorite. Bobby Slowick, a name we hear. Mike Vrabel, ooh, that's intriguing. Jeff Ulbrich does well enough to keep the job. I think 12 games is too many for him to hold it together. If it was just 3 or 4, maybe. Cliff Kingsbury, he's doing well with the Commanders. Aaron Glenn's out there, used to play for the Jets once upon a while. He was and is the Lions defensive coordinator. Clint Kubiak doing well with the Saints offense. Brian Flores, look, there's we could do a whole segment, and eventually will at some point do a whole segment on whether or not anyone's going to have the courage to give Brian Flores a head coaching job, given that he sued the NFL, the Giants, the Broncos, the Texans, and the Dolphins, and that case is still working through arbitration in the court system. But those are the ones, Michael, and we're going to do a draft of who we think is going to be the next coach of the Jets. But I look at the guys at the top. Why would they go there? Anybody who's got choices is not going to choose to work for Woody Johnson. They're going to go somewhere else. If you're Ben Johnson, he said no thanks last year to the Commanders and the Seahawks. He'll definitely say no thanks to the Jets. He should not. If you're going to bet on that, and I would not bet on something like this, I wouldn't bet on anything, because you're eventually going to lose over time anyway, and you'll win once, and you're just going to say, hey, I'm good at this. Nobody's good at it. That's why the house always wins. Don't waste your money on Ben Johnson. I'd be stunned. They would have to grossly overpay Ben Johnson and basically have Woody go back to the UK and stay there for Ben Johnson to take that job.
I used to think that, and I feel that way. I feel that way, Mike, and we share the same thought there. But I'm looking at the NFL. These coaches, I can't think of the last time a coach turned down an NFL job. Happens in other sports. Happens in the NBA. It just happened in the NBA a couple of years ago. A Warriors assistant decided to stay with the Warriors rather than go to the Charlotte Hornets because, hey, it's the Charlotte Hornets. Sorry. But in the NFL, you got an opportunity to be the boss and bring in your own coordinators and, get a major salary boost. Major, at least doubling your salary, sometimes tripling your salary. Even if it's a bad organization, those guys will take it. So I think you go to each of those guys, nobody would turn it down, even though they should.
I disagree with you. We agree on most things, but look, here's what happens, I think. As the two sides begin to talk before any formal offers are made, this is the smart way to do it. And this is how I used to settle lawsuits on both sides. You don't put your final offer out there. You just say, hypothetically, if this were to be offered, would it be accepted? And something broke down with Ben Johnson in Washington. We all thought that's where he was going to go, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. And then they started to put out, he wanted so much money. It was shocking how much money he wanted, which I think is a load of crap, frankly. I think it's just the team's spin as to why he left them at the altar. Josh McDaniels bailed on the Colts. So it's not unprecedented. And I think if you're somebody who has choices and has options, you look at a bad organization and say, I'm not going to go there. And I think that Johnson and Slowick will have options. I think that Vrabel will have options. And Vrabel came out of a place that's low-key dysfunctional in Nashville, frankly. I know Titans fans aren't going to want to hear it because you can't fire the owner. He's not going to want to go to a place that is high-level and openly dysfunctional like the Jets. So I really do think that there's a lot more strategy into that, because you typically have one shot. And if you go to a place that's going to wreck you, just like the Jets wrecked quarterbacks, if the Jets wreck the coach, then the coach has to hope that some other owner is going to say, we know it wasn't you, Robert, or Todd, or Adam, although Adam was on his second chance, so he's not getting another one. We know it's the team. I just don't think you want to do that. You want to wait for a better spot to be successful if you can.
I forgot about McDaniels. That's a great example. But then McDaniels, when he turns down the Colts and goes back to the Patriots, and the thing is, went back to the Patriots, Tom Brady is still there, and they're a perennial Super Bowl contender. He felt like, hey, I'll be able to pick my next spot. And it took him 4 years. It took him 4 years to get another opportunity with Vegas. And that was after winning a Super Bowl getting the 3 straight Super Bowls, winning one in 2018. He wanted the Browns job that Kevin Stefanski got. He wanted some opportunities, but people looked at him and said, hey, you're the guy who accepted a job and turned it down. Maybe that was his problem. He accepted it and then turned it down. I guess if you quietly turn it down, people don't look at you like they can't trust you. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Or if it never gets to the point where you turn it down, when you're having these hypothetical conversations and you remove your name from consideration like Ben Johnson did, that's the more artful way to do it. And it's a small industry. It's 32 branches to one company. Although they're all separately owned, they can always go in a different direction, and they can always justify going a different way. That's why I go back to Flores. It is going to take a lot of courage for someone to hire him, because you're going to piss off the league office, John Mara, the owner of the Giants. You're going to piss off the Broncos. You're going to piss off the Texans. You're going to piss off the Dolphins, because they've all been sued by Brian Flores. And God forbid that somebody who still wants to work in this industry would have the audacity to try to advance his or her legal rights. But I've seen that. You become pariah the moment you do it. It's wrong, but it's going to take someone with a lot of courage to buck their partners and the league office to give Brian Flores that job, because I think Brian Flores would be a great candidate. However, Michael, there is another dynamic at play here. We're going to get to the draft in a second. But what teams tend to do, they go for the exact opposite of the coach they just fired. So if it was as simple as red and black on a roulette wheel, offensive or defensive, I'm putting all my chips on offensive, that they're going to get an offensive coach because they just had a defensive coach. It's time to flip it over to an offensive coach. Look, their last coach was offensive in Adam Gase. They flipped it to defensive. Before that, it was defensive in Todd Bowles. So it doesn't hold all the way back to Rex Ryan, but at the same time, that's a big factor here. We want somebody who's the exact opposite of Robert Saleh. So offensive guy, I think, is more likely than a defensive guy.
Yeah, I think you're right. And this is the way the league is trending anyway. But the offensive explosion, that was the number one thing. This offensive, hey, we got to get this next young, bright, innovative coach, somebody from the Shanahan tree, McVay tree, one of those guys. It's being countered a bit by former player, because that's what Albrecht, if you listen to some of the reporting and some of the whispers, it's like players really respect that Jeff Albrecht played. And he didn't play, played for a while. He didn't play at a particularly high level. He wasn't a great player. But I think a lot of NFL players now look at it, DeMeco Ryans, Gerard Mayo, they look at some of these guys, hey, he
Great
played
point.
in the league. He understands where I'm coming from. So I think former player gets you get some bonus points on that one.
All right, so let's get to it. Let's do a draft of the next Jets coach after this year. It could be Albrecht. It could be anyone else. The world is completely open. Anyone you want, Michael. I'll give you the first pick. And we won't hold you to this unless you're wrong. Who's the next head coach of the Jets?
Well, I heard what you said about offensive coaches, Mike. You make a lot of sense. I agree with you. However, with the first pick, and I'm looking at all my voluminous draft information, we're going to take former Pro Bowl player Mike Vrabel, former head coach Mike Vrabel. So I think he is perfect for the Jets culture if they will listen to him. Played in the league at a high level, won championships in the league, has coached in college, coached in the pros, did a good job with Tennessee, and has been open to offensive coordinators doing something a little different than what he would do. I mean, he did have Arthur Smith there in Tennessee, and Arthur Smith turned around Ryan Tannehill's career and was able to give Tennessee some success. The question is, will Ambassador Johnson listen when Mike Vrabel comes in and says, you know what, I'm not going to call you Ambassador. Okay, I'm going to call you Woody. I'm just not doing that damn thing. But Mike Vrabel has called out, he'll call out anybody. He's gone at Tom Brady. He's gone at Robert Kraft. He used to make fun of Bill Belichick. As a player in meetings, he is fearless. And I think he's exactly the kind of guy who will bring credibility to the Jets.
Well, I think he would be perfect in that market. We didn't see much of it because nobody really paid attention to the Titans while he was there. But Vrabel, I think, will be, if he would be the Jets coach, very colorful, funny, somewhere between Rex Ryan and Bill Parcells. Not with that mean streak to the same extent Parcells would have it, and not as, I don't know, goofy, like not in a funny way, just like bizarre, goofy Rex Ryan. Like there's a sweet spot between those two personalities that could really take over New York. I just think that Vrabel is going to have other options, and he's going to know, I don't want this job. Unless Woody Johnson is again the ambassador to the UK. We won't know that with 100% certainty by the time they're hiring, but the election will have been over. We'll know whether or not the president who wins in 3 weeks and 6 days is going to be the one who would appoint him to go back there. We might know it by the time we get to January. So that would be a factor, I think. Do I deal with Christopher or do I deal with Woody? And I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Saleh thought he was going to be dealing with Christopher and not Woody when he took the job in the first place. So I like Vrabel. Now, all of mine are off the board. If we have the graphic with the odds, none of mine appear on that list. And that's because I'm looking for guys that would be willing to take this job, that don't have options for whatever reason. And I'm going to start with, and I'm cheating a little bit because the next name, if we had another page here, who has 14-1 odds, along with Ryan Day, Joe Brady, Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator. Because the Ravens offense has been very good under Todd Monken. And he's a guy who, he's older by NFL head coaching standards, although I think he's probably younger than me. But how many ships are going to come in to his port? How many options and offers would he have? And I could see the Jets saying, hey, look, the Ravens, and Joe Douglas has those connections to the Ravens, so it's easier to vet Todd Monken, makes a couple calls, Eric DeCosta, John Harbaugh, whoever. Yeah, this is a good guy. We really don't want to lose him. Why are you sniffing around our guy? But that's how it works. Yeah, this is his chance. He's been around. This is his opportunity. I could see Monken not having a lot of opportunities, and so taking the one that comes his way if and when the Jets call.
Oh, I like it. I like that. He's done a really good job with the Ravens offense, and he did a good job in college football. Offensive guy, again, yes, makes a lot of sense and would take that job. He'd take it because we know it's just unspoken. As you get a little age on you in the NFL, people aren't really knocking down your door unless they want you to be a bridge person. Think of David Culley with the Texans. He knew he wasn't long for the job. I didn't think it'd be one and done, but a respected older coach, but he only got that opportunity because the situation was that bad and they just needed somebody as a placeholder. But can I give you my second pick? My second pick?
Yes.
I'm going to keep going with this former player thing. And it's somebody who understands the market. It's Aaron Glenn, also a defensive guy, but has been part of a rebuild. This is why I think he's an attractive candidate. When he got to Detroit with Dan Campbell and everybody else there, Brad Holmes, it was a mess. And he kind of coached through the mess, and now they're a contender. And so I think with the Jets, when he takes over the franchise, it is not going to be what they think it is right now. They got to take a step back before they go forward. I actually think they've overrated their position a little bit. I think they're a good team. I do not think they're a Super Bowl team. I know I'm in the minority on that. I don't think they're that great. So I think Aaron Glenn needs to come in with the authority of knowing what it looks like. He was a part of a team that had Bill Parcells as a head coach and Bill Belichick on staff, Al Groh, all the Parcells people. He knows what it's supposed to look like. He knows the expectations of New York. I think he could go in and kind of give them a reset and give them, here's that word again, more credibility.
Now, next one for me defies my prediction that the Jets will go exact opposite of Robert Saleh and go for an offensive coach. How about Steve Spagnuolo? A guy who, for
Oh.
whatever reason, and age is probably the biggest one because he's 64, but he hasn't gotten another shot. He's got that history with the Giants in the same building when he was defensive coordinator there. He's done incredible things with the Chiefs' defense. The Chiefs are now quietly a defensive team, not an offensive team. And when you look at how many options, are you getting a quality coach that people aren't banging down the door to get? And from his perspective, this is my last shot. Yeah, I got to deal with Woody Johnson. I'll deal with him. I'll deal with him because I'm ready to try to coach again. And the mess he dealt with in St. Louis, when they were as dysfunctional as any team could have been, and his record showed. And I think he's been dragged down by that association with the Rams. Hey, if we're going to give quarterbacks he got started with a bad team. Let's do that with Spagnuolo too. He got his first job with a bad team, and now maybe finally he gets taken seriously as a head coaching candidate for a team that needs somebody who can come in, and there aren't going to be a bunch of guys rushing to be the Jets head coach. So Spagnuolo for me. Who's your third one? And you can react to Spagnuolo first if you want, so I don't want to rush you.
No, I would say Spagnuolo is a good choice, and it's hard to believe that he hasn't had an opportunity since that Rams job. They were still in St. Louis then, and you think about it, the team was really bad. People remember that he was a head coach. His offensive coordinator for a year was McDaniels. Now, Josh McDaniels is there, and they averaged 12 points a game with Josh McDaniels as their OC. So he's a good OC, but he couldn't save that franchise. Spagnuolo definitely deserves another shot. I hesitate to go to the next guy. He's number one on the board. And back to what you're saying, would he really want to take this job and leave a good thing in Detroit? But I already went on the defensive side for the Lions. Let's go offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. I know he has the opportunity to work with, or the ability to work with quarterbacks, but can he work with Aaron Rodgers if Rodgers is still there in 2025? I know he can work with Rodgers. Can Rodgers work with him when he tells Rodgers, hey, I think we could do it a better way. I think we could be more efficient and a little bit more creative. That's my only hesitation there. Not him, but what they allow him to do once he gets the job.
And I personally don't think that Rodgers will be there next year. I've just kind of taken that as a given that this is it for him, that he's not going to want to deal with a coaching change. The new coach might not want him. Maybe they want the new coach to be the one who tells Aaron Rodgers to move on. But I just think that he won't be there. I think that after this year, he'll realize it's time to move on with whatever he's going to do. Last one for me. And we've mentioned Josh McDaniels a couple times. I'm tempted to put McDaniels here because it's that Patriots rivalry, but things went so badly with the Raiders. I don't think Woody Johnson would go there, despite the fact that dysfunctional teams do dysfunctional things, so maybe it makes it more likely he'd go after Josh McDaniels. I think the better option, and this falls into the category of offensive coordinator, career coach, who never really thought, I'll be an NFL head coach, and all of a sudden the opportunity presents itself. There's no way I'm saying no. It's the Dave Canales model, the guy who took the Panthers job. I think a job nobody would have touched except him because I'm going to be a head coach. I never thought that would happen. Ryan Grubb, the Seahawks offensive coordinator. Geno Smith playing the best football of his career. There's that whole, hey, look, we couldn't do anything with Geno. This guy could. I think that becomes an attraction. The fact that there might not be a bunch of people trying to hire Ryan Grubb, and it is that Canales, hey, I better go. The window's open. I better go through it because it's going to close quickly and never open again. So Ryan Grubb's my last one.
You said a lot of people not trying to hire him, but you can't. That can't be the standard, can it? Like, yeah, if you're the Jets, if you're Jets fans, they want the best and the brightest. They want that person who wins the competition of like 10 teams wanted him, but we got him. We got the best coach out there. Won't that be what they're looking for?
Well, yeah, but they're not going to want to go there. That's the thing. Wouldn't David Tepper have rather had Bill Belichick? But there's no way Bill Belichick's going to go work for David Tepper, so he gets Dave Canales. And you make it look like, this is part of the sales job. This is one of the things on the Post-it notes when you're doing the conference call. Make it look like we got our first choice. Make it look like we got our first choice. So, anyway, we put some options out there. If Woody Johnson or anyone else with the Jets is inclined to listen to us, do so at your own peril. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.